In this movie, they say the Bloods don't die, we multiply. And I can imagine that that is going to be the case for this movie when it comes Oscar season. Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to an all-new Talkin Movies. As always, I'm your host, the real Gino Reynolds, and today we're going to be talking about the newest Spike Lee joint. This one is called Da 5 Bloods, and you can find it streaming right now on Netflix. I'm going to do my best to dance around spoilers, but there is some things that I need to talk about that might be considered minor spoilers, but I'll do my best to really go around big plot points and everything. But I will generalize some. So I will say this for those that don't want anything spoiled. While I did have some issues with this movie, I still thought it was a really good one. Spike Lee is very hit and miss with me. For every Do the Right Thing in Black Klansman, you have like an Old Boy. And I'm sure there's a few others. If I went through the list, I'd be like, yeah, I didn't like that one too. But like Black Klansman, I like this one like I like Black Klansman. It's like I really dug the story, but I had some issues with the execution. But still, I recommend it, especially since it's on Netflix. If you got a subscription, definitely check it out. What this movie is about is you have four Vietnam vets that are going back to Vietnam to find the remains of their fallen commander. But also, they're going to Vietnam to find hidden gold that they and the commander hid on a. They found it on a mission. It was like a crashed CIA plane, and they're going back there. They hid the gold and they're going to go back to get it, but they're supposed to come back with the gold and put the money into the black community. Um, and this is about them having to deal with a former, let's just say, associate of one of the characters and then their business partner. Um, okay, so I want to talk about what I like about this movie first because, again, I did have some issues with it. And, again, I still recommend it, but this movie isn't without its problems. I want to say usual problems because Spike Lee kind of runs into some of these problems. Um, but first, the stuff that I liked. The look and feel of this movie is fantastic. This movie does something really cool where when you're in the present time, it's in 16 by 9. But when it shifts to the past, the aspect ratio changes to 4 by 3 right in front of you most of the time. There's a couple times it cuts to 4 by 3, but most of the time you watch the black bar shift, and then the filter goes over the Vietnam era stuff, and it looks like old footage. And I thought that was a really cool way of doing it. One thing a lot of people have noticed, and I noticed this as well, it took me a bit, but they didn't really try to de-age the four older characters that are coming back to Vietnam. Of course, you have Chadwick Boseman playing the fallen commander, and he's young looking because that's the way they remembered him. But the four older characters are still old in the flashbacks, and I don't know if that's like a way to say that they've never left Vietnam or something. They didn't, or that maybe they just didn't want to de-age them because they didn't think it looked right or something. I mean, while I thought the Irishman did a decent job at de-aging, there were points where it's like, yeah, you can tell. And maybe they just didn't want to do that. I don't know. But I thought it worked pretty well, keeping them looking the same, because that's, again, it's like they never left country. The acting in this movie is phenomenal. I mentioned at the beginning that this movie's probably going to have a lot of nominations during Oscar season. Well, the year's not over, and I can't say like this is the best picture of the year. And I probably wouldn't say that, even though I really enjoyed it, because again, it's not without its real issues. But the acting in this movie is phenomenal. Delroy Lindo, if he's not at least nominated, at least right now from the movies I've seen, if Delroy Lindo's not nominated for his performance, I will be shocked. I will probably be shocked if he doesn't win either. He has some scenes in this movie that are just bone chilling, and because see his character is probably like, while all of them have their issues and have had their problems after leaving Vietnam, Delroy Lindo's character is probably the one that is being hit most by PTSD. You can tell that something happened, like really bad happened to him in Vietnam, or something that he was a part of. You can tell that this happened, so he's really messed up. He's been having nightmares and a lot of the PTSD stuff, but you can tell that even though this is something I was afraid of, but it didn't happen, I thought they were going to have, let's just say, a big hero moment with this character, but they didn't. I was glad they didn't, and I can't really say why because it would be like a big spoiler. But I was afraid this movie was going to not treat PTSD seriously in the end, but it did, and I was happy that it did with his character. But there's scenes in this movie where it was really a neat way to have his character. It only happens like in one part of the movie, but his character, while he's not really talking to the audience, while he's not really breaking the fourth wall, he's looking right at the camera, but it's not him talking to you, even though he kind of is. It's him talking to the thoughts in his head and to the ghosts that he's seeing. The issues he's having, his PTSD is causing him just to talk to himself, but he's looking right at you. And it was a neat way to break the fourth wall and talk to the audience, but not really break the fourth wall and talk to the audience. I thought that was cool. And Delroy Lindo, who I have loved for a long time, he's phenomenal. Again, I'm not putting down any other performance in this because everyone was really good, even if they had smaller roles like Jean Reno. You got great performances out of everybody. The direction is really good. Spike Lee will probably be nominated for Best Director. The year's not over, so I don't know if he'll get it, but the pacing of this movie and the way things looked and played out, it worked really well, and I thought he did a really good job. This movie shows the horrors of war. When it gets bloody and violent, it gets bloody and violent. It's pretty gruesome at times. There's a few scenes that are pretty disgusting, and they're very effective. So I'll give it that. I just like the way the story was being told, because again, it would go from the past to present, but also there was a couple of times it cut away to Hanoi Hannah, who was a Vietnamese lady that was on the radio, and she specifically addressing the black soldiers, and of course they could hear these radio waves, so she was telling them things like, your country don't love you, and here's what's happening in your country while you're away. You're fighting for this country that doesn't, they want you to fight for their freedom, but back home you're being persecuted. And it's not like she's not speaking truth, but it's just the way they add this into the movie. It kind of motivates, during the past stuff, you see how it motivates the characters on what they do. So that, again, the movie is fantastic. I love the pacing. I love the characters. Some of the issues I had was, one, while very educational, while I did enjoy this is a minor complaint, because I learned some things from this movie about, they would bring up certain things that happened to certain black people in the past, and the characters would be talking about it. And while it felt a little like exposition, and maybe a little forced, it was still really interesting and educational, so it worked for me. And they did that a lot in this movie. It wasn't as blatant as like the end of Black Klansman, where I thought they did a good enough job throughout the movie connecting the KKK to Trump. But you know, because at the end of that movie, they're just like, oh, by the way, here's clips of Trump, right? It's like you already made the point with subtlety, and now you're just cramming in our face. That was something I didn't like about Black Klansman. This one, while it just didn't do it at the end. They did show things at the end, but it wasn't as forced. It didn't feel as forced as it did in Black Klansman. And also, they kind of spread it out through the movie, and I thought that worked a little better because it helped play the narrative to comparing how things were then and how they are now. So that one gets a pass. One thing that really bothered me, though, was how telegraphed this movie was. And again, these might be considered spoilers, so I won't mention character names for the most part. Some characters would bring up things like they would have a discussion about I would never sacrifice myself for you. Well, that character ends up doing it, right? Just things like that. You know, once you meet certain characters that they're not going to be the most trustworthy. You know, given the state of, and this one I have to mention a character name, the state of Delroy Lindo's character's mental state, it's like, you have one gun, why would you give it to him? Right? I mean, it's just because you know that that's just going to end up bad because of the way he is mentally. You meet characters that specialize in the diffusing of old landmines. I wonder if that's going to come into play. I mean, there's just so many different things like that. That the movie, just a lot of the plot points really telegraph themselves, and it kind of bothered me a little bit. Again, it didn't ruin the movie because I really did still enjoy the movie, and I really did enjoy the story. But again, when you see this stuff coming, it kind of takes a little bit out of it. You know one character is going to go visit somebody, and it's like, I was like, my first thought was thoughts of Full Metal Jacket is like, gee, I wonder, or more so probably Missing in Action 3 Braddock, where you have this character's like, need to go visit somebody. Well, gee, I wonder if he's going to go visit a prostitute he used to get with when he was there. Sure enough, he did. And then my next thought is, gee, I wonder if they have a kid. Sure enough, they did. I mean, it just kind of really telegraphed itself. One cool fact about this, and I got to pull it up here, and I love this because I'm a big fan of the Temptations, and the characters in the present, their names are Paul, Melvin, Otis, Eddie, and David, which are the names of the members of the Temptations. And then Chadwick Boseman's character is named Norman, and Norman Whitfield is he produced most of the Temptations music. So I just thought little things like that were kind of cool. Also, this movie, while I'm fine with it, because like Tarantino does this too, where you take things from other movies and kind of make it your own. You can see, there's motivate there. If you're looking like Spike Lee's, I guess, favorite movie is The Treasure of Sierra Madre, and you can definitely see that in this. You can maybe compare this movie to something like Three Kings. Of course, you can see, and I guess there's some quotes from like Apocalypse Now and Bridge on the River Kwai. I mean, there's all sorts of nods. I guess you can call them nods to these movies. I wouldn't say he outright just took them. I mean, a lot of directors are motivated by films of the past, and so you can see a lot of that inspiration in this movie as well. All in all, Da 5 Bloods is a solid movie. Though it telegraphs itself, the characters are still really interesting. The acting is still really good. The look and feel of the movie, both in the past and the present, it works really well. So all in all, it's still a really solid movie despite my issues with it. And especially being on Netflix, there's really no reason not to check it out. That's going to be all for this edition of Talkin Movies. If you like what you've heard here, please subscribe to the Real Gino YouTube channel. Like this video. You have anything to say about Spike Lee's joint Da 5 Bloods, please feel free to leave a comment in the section below. Till next time, I'm your host, the Real Gino, Gino Reynolds. See you later.